Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Randy. Today I'm going to be doing a little fall book recommendations video. I have, I think, 8 books to talk about today. It's just like very gloomy out today. It's been raining all weekend. It's cold finally. Like, it is fully fall. So I was like, what kind of books am I reading this fall? Like, what do I want to read? And I feel like I'm very heavy on fantasy and like darker, like literary fiction, dark academia, stuff like that. So yeah, I have 8 recommendations for you guys that fall like into that category, things that I like to read. But yeah, I'm just gonna get right into it here. The first book is a book that I read, oh my god, so long ago, maybe like 7 years ago. It's Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. Of course, as it's been so long since I read it, it's not very fresh in my brain, but I very much remember the setting reminding me of like coldness, isolation, in like gloominess, like a general overhead gloominess, and I loved that vibe. But basically this book follows a woman named Agnes, and Agnes is basically sentenced to death for murder. And this is like historical fiction also, by the way, so it takes place like not recently. I couldn't tell you. I want to say like maybe 1800s. That's like the vibes I got from it. But so this woman Agnes is sentenced to death, and they sent her to this like really rural farm in northern Iceland. It also takes place in Iceland, which is really cool. And she like lives on this farm with this family, and they are like avoiding her. Like, they don't trust her, obviously, like she's a murderer. And it follows her like waiting for her death day, and you like slowly are finding out more about Agnes and like what actually happened. And it was just very atmospheric. It's very much like you're trying to discover what happened to this woman and why she's like, why this happened to her, like what, yeah. You're just trying to figure it all out. I remember really enjoying it, and I kind of want to reread it, which is maybe a hot take. I'm not always a big rereader, but this book has been on my mind a lot lately, so I think it's time for a reread. But yeah, Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. Then we have one that was massive last year that I'm just gonna bring back around. Babel by R.F. Kuang. I fucking loved this book. I tabbed it all up. Absolutely obsessed. The amount of annotations I put in this book is like psychotic. Like, what was I doing? What was I doing? I was obsessed with this book. So Babel follows a boy named Robin Swift, and I don't want to go into crazy detail because this book is like super long, and I know that we find things out like as we're going, so I don't want to accidentally reveal too much. But Robin ends up going to Oxford, and you follow him and his cohort as they're navigating like this Oxford life. The interesting thing about Robin and his cohort is that they are not white, and this book again is a historical fiction fantasy kind of novel. So him being not white, he's from China, it is like a huge thing. Like, he is facing a lot of disrespect, and you're kind of like looking into the roots of like how academia is like rooted in racism. There's also a little magic system involved in this book called it's like silver working. You're able to work with silver and like manipulate it, and that works along with language. It's very cool. It's very complicated, so I can't really explain it unless like you read it. I recommend it. There's also like secret societies and like drama and travel, and like there's just so much that happens in this book, but the vibes are immaculate. It is so university dark core. You picture the gloominess, you picture like the studying in the library all day. Like, it is so fall. And it was just absolutely fantastic. It was a 5 out of 5 stars for me, so definitely recommend this one, especially for the fall time. It's perfect. Then I have another one that was pretty popular maybe the last few years, If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This book did for me what The Secret History didn't. So like, my hot take is I didn't like The Secret History. It just wasn't for me. I thought it was boring. I didn't see like the appeal of like why people were so obsessed with it. Like, I just didn't get it. This book did it for me. This book is very similar in terms of like, it is a dark academia college setting novel with following a big group of friends. So that's like the same as A Secret History. And you're trying, and as you also don't know what happens or how it happened right away. Like, you know, like pieces of the story and you're trying to put it all together, and that's what this is. So this one follows primarily the guy named Oliver, and he is released from prison. And upon his release, he is met with this detective that was like working on his case like however many years ago. And now Oliver is ready to tell his story. And then they delve into his time at the college with his friends and like their Shakespeare troupe and the drama and the murder and like everything that happened. Super good. Again, super immaculate vibes. Like, I ate this book up. Again, this is a book that I would definitely want to reread. I read it only last year, so not yet. But this would definitely be a book that like one year I would definitely want to reread. The only disclaimer that I will put, that some people don't love it, and that's because they don't really know Shakespeare that well. And I don't think that you need to know Shakespeare to like love this book, but I do think that it helps. So if that's something that like isn't gonna bother you, then like go straight into it. But if you think that you wouldn't appreciate the Shakespeare troupe aspect of it, then it might not hit for you. I was in a Shakespeare like troupe when I was in high school, so this book hit for me. And like a lot of the plays and the things that they talk about are things that I also kind of experienced. And then maybe that's why it hit so much for me, but it's fantastic and it's really, really well written as well. So If We Were Villains, I'm dropping things. Then I have another like kind of dark academia. This is like a dark academia fantasy. A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. Jesus Christ. Naomi Novik. This book, I loved this book. And the thing is that this book is kind of confusing. So I read the whole series. This is a trilogy. And it kind of never stops being a little bit confusing, or like you don't know exactly what's going on. Like, that never really ends. That is also a disclaimer for this one. I didn't mind that. I kind of liked like the constant surprise or like not fully understanding. And I understand why Naomi Novik did it this way. But so you, if you don't know, this book follows a girl named Elle, and she goes into this school called the Scholomance, which is like a school for like magic users. Like, I forget what they call them in this book, like witches, wizards, like that kind of thing. But I don't think they're called witches and wizards in this book. But basically that. So they go to the Scholomance, and the Scholomance doesn't have any teachers. The school is the thing. The school is alive and it's teaching you. And there are these horrible monsters in the school, and basically you're just trying to survive while getting your education. And once you go into the Scholomance, you can't get out until you graduate. So you're in there for years trying to survive these monsters and not die, and also like be at the top of your class. And it's just really enjoyable to watch the main character Elle try to like navigate this school and like see who she can trust and see who she can't trust, because people like try to kill each other because like they're trying to make their chances of graduation or graduating better. It's a whole thing. It's super enjoyable. I thought it was really fun, and I just loved the main characters, Elle and one of her friends, Orion, as well as their other friend group. Like, I just loved everybody, and I liked that they were all relatively different, and that a lot of the characters are morally gray because they kind of have to be. But it had really, really cool vibes as well. Like, it was dark because like they're constantly trying to not die, and there's a lot of like rivalries and enemies, and death is happening, and there's a lot of fighting, but there's also like that studying school aspect. Like, it's all very cool. And the whole trilogy is genuinely very good. I think the first and the second are my favorite, and the third one is not as much, but they're all still very good. So, A Deadly Education. Then I have one that maybe I would consider maybe like a more wintry read, but I'm going to include it here because I think that fall is a perfect time to start like sprawling fantasy series. I have A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. This book is extremely classic fantasy. And the whole series is super long, so it's like a perfect time to like delve into it. I'm not going to dive too heavily into like what the series is about because I feel like generally people already know, but just like the general gist is it follows like the Stark family, the Lannister family, all the families like in this world, and basically eventually like there comes to be a war. There's a whole thing. It's like a lot of build up. It's a lot very political, and there's a million characters and a million side quests that all connect to like one major storyline, which is really interesting. It's very complex and it's really really well done. But it is very classic fantasy, so there are times where like you feel like something is just being repeated too much, or like maybe like certain characters aren't as interesting as others, but like they're still important, which is kind of frustrating. But overall, I love this series, and I think that it's really well done. And it also is different than the TV series. A lot of people don't know that. The book and the TV series, like, they really diverge. I want to say, like, maybe like season 3-ish of the show is like where they like primarily diverge. I think seasons 1 and 2 are pretty true to the books, but I noticed a big difference in the between the two, which is also fun. Like if you already watched the show and you're like, well, I've already watched it, I know what happens, it's like, well, not necessarily, because there's a lot of differences. But again, I just love a really classic fantasy vibe, so a Game of Thrones is always a good one to start off and then keep reading throughout the winter. And then I have The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is also a fantasy. This one is like, I can almost say nothing about this book because I think that it's like best to go into this book blind, because like I didn't really understand what this book was about when I started it, and I was really confused for like 100 pages. And then after that 100-page mark, something clicked, like something is like revealed to you and it all makes sense. And it's like the biggest like, oh my god moment. So I don't want to say that much, but I will say that there is magic in this world. The storyline is involving kind of like this catastrophe that is like the end of the world. Like it's seen as like the end of the world and people are trying to survive, and as the reader you're trying to understand like what is going on, and like you're finding out so much. It's very, very complicated, but it's very, very good. And I honestly, that's all I want to say. If this even slightly interests you, please pick it up. This book is the whole series, so good. Super, super good. Then I have a really classic one that I feel like a lot of people like to read in the fall time, Six of Crows, by Leigh Bardugo. So Six of Crows is not like a revolutionary recommendation from me. I love this little duology, and I love the whole Grishaverse, honestly, but the Six of Crows duology is like untouchable. Like it is so good, and I think about the characters literally all the time. Six of Crows follows Kaz Brekker and his little ragtag group of criminals, basically, as they embark on a heist, like a major, like potentially deadly heist, to get a bunch of money. And they live in this world, like this island called Ketterdam, that is like, when I picture Ketterdam, it's like, it's always very dark, a little dirty, like it's kind of gross, a little grimy, very busy hustle and bustle. And I just love those vibes, and I love a heist. A heist is so fun. This book really has such a good found family friendship story, and it is so good, and the characters will absolutely like make you fall in love with them. And it's just so fun. Like I could not put this book down, and I know so many people say that because it's just true. So please read it. Six of Crows. Then I have one more little bookie to recommend for today, and this is a book that is near and dear to my little heart. Is I Am the Messenger by Marcus Zusak. I had the Australian copy here. This is like in Australia, like the UK and stuff, it's called The Messenger, but in the US it's I Am the Messenger. This is my special like COVID signed edition. I absolutely love this. I bought this and had it shipped over. So Marcus Zusak is super well known for writing The Book Thief, which is one of my favorite books of all time. But he also writes other books, and they are also absolutely phenomenal. I think that they should get more recognition. Oh, also this is a TV show now. I don't know how to watch it in the US, but I know in like Australia and stuff it's a TV show. But this one is like perfect for fall time because it follows this cab driver named Ed Kennedy, and he's kind of like failing at life. Like his life just kind of blows, and he like doesn't know what to do about it. And he starts getting these playing cards in the mail that have addresses on them. And it basically, the story follows him like going to the addresses on the cards, and it like changes his life, and he is like helping people and getting involved in other people's lives, and it's like super cool. It's a very community aspect book, like learning to like love a community, and like this guy like understanding himself. And again, for some reason, Marcus Zuzak's books, like whenever I picture the setting, when like he describes them, like it's almost like kind of dark all the time when I picture his books. Like it's like dark, slightly grimy, like maybe some like candles lit, like it's like that's like the ambiance that I get from his book. So I couldn't tell you why, it just is what it is. But this book is phenomenal. I think I read this book like 10 times. It's been a few years. I'm due for a reread, but it's just so good, and it's super slept on. Like I genuinely like never hear anybody talk about this book, and that breaks my heart. But I just think it's a really cool story. Like it's a cool plot line that I don't see, like this man getting playing cards in the mail and like with addresses on them. And there's a very creepy element. Like you don't know who is sending him these cards, and like if he doesn't do what the cards want him to do, he's in danger. I forgot that element. It's like kind of not thriller-y, but it kind of borders on that if it was more intense, but that vibe, if that makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. So that was the last book, I Am the Messenger by Marcus Zuzak. So good, so slept on. Those are all my books that I have to recommend. Those are all books that I have loved. Most of them are like fantasy, dark academia vibes. They're just so good, and they give me perfect fall vibes. So I hope some of you maybe pick one or two of these up. Maybe I've influenced you to read a book that was on your TBR or something. But yeah, I'll be back soon with another video, hopefully. Thanks for watching.